Life in the 80s.
Hello, Todd.
Hello, Rachel.
Nice to meet you.
Oh, nice to meet you. Have a coffee with me.
Okay.
So, Rachel, did you grow up in New Zealand?
Yes, I did.
Nice. So I grew up in the States, and I thought we would talk about how life is so much different for teens today than it was for our generation.
Okay, I think we can do that.
So obviously the first thing is that when we were young, we didn't have like smartphones and things like that. We didn't have the internet,
We didn't
actually.
have internet, we didn't have email.
Yeah. So I remember if you wanted to meet a friend, you would have to plan it way in advance.
Yes.
You would have to wait by the phone. Remember that, waiting by the phone? You couldn't go outside because if you were waiting for the call, you had to wait at your house until you got the call. And
We
then,
didn't even have an answering machine.
wow,
Yeah,
my
call
gosh.
waiting.
That's really old school.
We used to have to wait by the phone.
Yeah.
Actually, I used to spend every afternoon after school on the phone with my friends.
Uh-huh.
After we got home from school, we would call each other and discuss the day's events, I suppose.
Yeah, you had so much to share.
Mm.
That's true. I think,
So my teens these days, they come home from school, they get on their phone and they text all their friends.
right.
Mm.
And they do it all day. Like it's constant,
Yeah.
constant chatter. I think maybe that's why I'm not so much into texting. It's just too much work, you know? Like I like to build up the mystery of not knowing what somebody did for a while.
Yeah, but I was thinking about it recently, and I think it was similar because we used to telephone a lot,
Mm,
but then we did have to wait a long time before finding the news.
true. Yeah, I read once about how a lot of the movie plots from like the 60s, 70s, and 80s wouldn't work today because of cell phones.
Yes,
Because a lot of the storyline,
they're about missed communication.
right,
and,
right, yeah.
Yes, and somebody arrived and somebody else didn't.
So another one I think that's really obvious is bottled water. So when I grew up, there was no such thing as bottled water. Like you had to get water
Oh.
from a faucet, right?
Yes, from
Like-
a tap.
Yeah, and I think I remember when they first started coming out with bottled water. I think I was about 14 or 15.
It was a bit later in New Zealand, I think.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. So that was crazy. But, I mean, do you remember what it was like when people were first drinking bottled water? How strange it seemed at the time? Everyone was like, why don't you get it from the tap?
The waters are very clean in New Zealand, so the tap water is clean, so there was really no reason.
Yeah, like if you come from a temperate climate, it was never a problem, right? Because I'm from a temperate climate as well. And so the water doesn't really have problems with bacteria or things like that. So it's always clean. It used to be clean. So in New Zealand, it's probably still clean.
The rivers used to be clean, but they're not so clean now.
Oh,
There's-
really?
yeah.
Even
There's
in New
been some
Zealand?
problems, yeah.
Oh, really? Oh,
With-
shocking.
It's a bit sad.
Yeah. So how about other things that we used to do when we were kids? Like one thing is, I think compared to kids today, is we used to spend a lot of time outside.
Yes.
Actually, like our parents would not allow you to stay inside. You had to be
go
out.
outside.
You had to go
yeah.
outside,
It's
right?
the opposite today. They
Yeah.
make them stay inside and won't let them go outside.
Why is that? What's the rationale for why they should stay inside?
Safety.
Safety?
Mm.
Yeah.
We
But-
didn't used to hear about all of the kidnappings and abuse in the media, so
Right.
people weren't afraid of it.
Yeah.
So
And the crazy thing is,
we
I
hear
think
about it now.
it's actually safer now, right? They say it's
it's safer now.
even in the States where they hear about this. I think statistics say that it's actually safer than it was before.
Yes,
But the perception is there.
although that could be because the children are all inside.
That's true. Yeah.
That's a difficult one to figure out. But I don't think it's that unsafe to play outside. I think it's better for kids socially, for their bodies, for their development to play outside if they can.
I agree. I totally agree. Like kids definitely should be outside, and kids should be bored. I think that's one of the things that kids miss out on is boredom.
They're never bored now. They've always got a screen to look at.
Right. So, obviously when we were young, you had nothing to do, so you had to go outside and find
Climb
something.
a tree.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's so fun.
I thought of something.
Hmm.
We used to have video watching parties.
Oh, yeah.
Only one person in 10 had a video machine.
Right.
So we would all go to this video store together and argue over which videos to watch and choose some horror movies and some comedies, and then go to one person's house and all watch them all together.
I do remember that. Yeah, it was a big thing.
No Netflix binging, but
Yeah.
having a video party at someone's house was a big deal.
And I think movies were a much bigger deal back then because we didn't have screen time. There was no such thing as screen time. You had your TV, but that was not the same thing. Your parents wouldn't let you watch that much TV anyway. And so a movie was a big deal.
It was more of a big deal. You didn't just watch it on Netflix when you were bored.
Yeah, but a kid these days, it's just, they're on their screen all the time.
Yeah.
It's just more digital pixels. Yeah, different times.
Photo manner mode.
Okay, here's another thing. It's a little bit impolite. What about looking at other people's monitor over their shoulder? Because you just mentioned the BTS. One thing I have to admit is because I don't have my phone out and I am looking around, I have a tendency to want to check and see what's on everybody's phone, and it's total intrusion. It's creepy in a way, but it's also because in Asia I'm a little bit taller than the average person, so I'm looking down and I can see everybody's monitor.
Yeah.
And yeah, do you ever find yourself doing that too?
I do, yeah. But like you, I think it's impolite.
Right, so you got to
Yeah.
pull away. I know I shouldn't do it.
But do you know the worst thing with phones these days? The worst thing, from my point of view, is the amount of pictures that people take of themselves everywhere, on the BTS, on the subway, eating. I've been to S21 in Cambodia, where those poor people were slaughtered, basically. And there are people in front of pictures of these people who were killed, and they are just literally taking selfies of themselves. This world isn't about you.
Yeah.
It's sometimes just stop and look and listen.
Yeah, the selfie thing, I did a little bit. Sometimes I would do it almost like it's sending a postcard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, oh, look, I'm here. But I have to admit, yeah, I don't really like doing it. Yeah.
And they take it, the shot again. I use selfies in a group because I think they're fun. It's actually quite fun to see one person at the front and the rest at the back.
Yes.
And it usually means I can get further back in the photograph. So that's always a good thing.
Oh, that's true. So, but that's good that you admit you do some selfies.
Yeah, with groups. And, if I'm taking a group in the class, I'll get one of them to take the photograph.
Yeah. What about the mild pet peeve of mine? Not a pet peeve, but people taking photos of their food. I don't know why it's a thing.
Why? Eat it.
Yeah, exactly. Enjoy it. Enjoy the memory. It's interesting you said that about Cambodia. A group of women once said something that was really like just a spear in the heart, really made me think. I was in Cambodia. This was years ago, and I was at Angkor, at Batong Bayong, or I can't say it right, but where they have the beautiful face sculptures. And I'm like, oh, I gotta get a photo. And so there's a woman just sitting there relaxed. She was maybe French or something. She was European. And she's like, oh, you want me to take your photo? And I go, yeah. So then she takes it. She takes my photo. This is before like cell phone cameras. And then I'm like, okay, I have to reciprocate. I go, oh, would you like me to take a photo of you? She's like, no. I'm like, you don't have a camera? She goes, no. And she just points at her head and she taps her head like this and she goes, it's all up here.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. Like
That's
she was
amazing.
really kind of like, politely saying like, I'm never going to, and I've never forgotten how those things look.
Yeah.
I've never forgotten her sitting on the rock when she said that. So wise advice, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Now, actually, you are in photography. Do you think that actually you have a photography business.
Yes.
Do you think that actually taking so many photographs lessens the value of the art of photography and really appreciating a good picture?
Yes, I think it does. And I think that a lot of the apps and the things that you can use these days to improve photographs take away the real skill of the photographer, using the light, using the lines, using what's in the photograph to make a really good shot. I think people miss that these days.
Yeah, that is true. Anyway, and so today, no using your phone.
No, I did hear it go bing bing.
Tech manner mode.
Hi, Dot. How are you?
Very good. How are you?
So I'm here with Angela, and in a previous interview, we were talking about kids and technology and devices, and how these days, often people look at their device when they're with another person. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about that? Like if you're eating with somebody, you're at dinner, is it okay to check your phone?
We have a rule in our house: no phones at the table.
Very
Absolutely
nice.
no phones. Because, you see people, they meet in restaurants, they sit around a table, the food comes, but everybody's looking into their phone and engaging with whatever they're doing on their phone and not talking to the people who have met them. And you see people walking on the subway, the street, head in their phone. It's,
It is crazy.
It's really sad.
And if you think about it, we used to have, manners, things you couldn't do. For example, no elbows on the table. No hats inside the house. I mean, it sounds silly, but I remember those rules as a kid.
Yes.
The one that was really hard was the no elbows on the table. Yeah, so it's interesting that we don't have new rules. Like, we should reinvent them. Like, you can't have your phone on during the plane when it takes off. Mm. So your rule is a really good idea.
Yeah, no phones at the table.
So you're an English teacher. What do you think about phones in the classroom?
If they're on a break, I always call it their text break, because when I'm teaching English out here, I find that people have got their phone to their hand and maybe they're Googling a word or something. So it's not too much of a distraction. But when you stop them for a break, as soon as you say, let's have a break now, they're all out with their phones and they're sitting individually looking at their phones.
And it's silence. I know what you mean. Like,
silence.
I'll teach, and it used to be you would say, okay, take a break, and it would be really loud. They would start talking with each other. And these days, it's just silence. They just go, and they do that motion of just flicking with their finger as they're scrolling down. And I know I just sound like, some old guy. Hey, get off my lawn. And I have the same problem. I want to check my phone all the time, but I have to admit, it's strange, I think.
Yes. And now you needn't even check your phone. You can just look at your Apple Watch or your watch on your wrist. It's going to tell you if your phone needs your attention.
Well, it used to be where I would say things like, as a teacher, you're teaching, and you can see if a student's looking down at their phone.
Yes.
And I would say, hey, don't check your phone. But now these days, kids actually call me on it. They're like, oh, I'm looking up a word, or oh, I'm checking something. And they literally are checking something. And the kids are good at using their phone as a learning tool.
Yes, I think that's fine.
So it's a gray area these days. Yeah. So when you're with somebody, you never pop out your phone.
I would admit that I would be guilty of checking my phone in my bag, but I would never get it out and go on Facebook or Instagram and start Instagramming. I would just look at it and put it away.
Yeah. There's other things I've done. I mean, it could be because I'm getting older, but for example, I try not to listen to my iPod so much anymore. Or my phone, radio, music, whatever. I actually just try to listen. I notice that when I'm always listening to everything, I kind of tune the world out, and I might miss things.
You will miss things. And, you see people... I've been quite tempted some days to put my earphones in and walk to the BTS. But actually I think, no, you'd miss the traffic noise, you'd miss the tuk-tuks, you'd miss a dimension of the world that's happening around you. And then you get on the BTS and everybody in the carriage is head down.
Yeah.
In the same position on their phones.
Yeah. It is, and actually I don't do it just for that reason, because I notice that I'm missing out. It's so tempting, but I might see something.